Howdy, folks. All right, we're back. Got I've been talking about this in the past videos for a little bit, so I'm attempting to start now a big exploration, retrospective into the Canterbury scene. And I've taken that, without too much discipline or, qualifications for who's going to be who's going to not be. But I'm basically, I'm mostly going from debut albums. And let me first start off with, I appreciate everybody's comments in the past couple of weeks. It's really been enlightening. I've started putting polls up if you haven't seen them yet in the community, community tabs. I started putting polls up in the community tabs for, so I want to do some full albums. I love doing the medleys, marathons, singles, themed sort of, themed mixture of songs and playlists and stuff like that. It's great. But obviously I want to get into full albums too, not just sort of cherry pick them. So yeah, I've got up polls. I'm going to listen to the Gentle Giant album that I did do the first song off of, or I did, it was at Pantagruel's Nativity. So I did that as a new listen for music of, I think, 1971 progressive rock. And so I put up some polls. I'm going to do that whole album. So I'm really interested. I haven't heard much of Gentle Giant at all. And I've, talked to a few commenters here and there about, my experiences with them a long time ago. So yeah, this is going to be a new listen for me and hopefully for you guys. Yeah, you'll be excited to, re-listen to acquire the taste. Gentle Giant. I'm also going to do the first studio Gil Scott-Heron album, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Profiles of a Man. Profiles. So I'm going to do that full album, and then I also have a couple polls up for Jethro Tull albums, some I have heard, and another poll for ones that I haven't heard. It's going to be new listens. So far it looks like Thick as a Brick, and that's one I've heard. I listened to it a long time ago when I really didn't really appreciate it as much compared to their other stuff. So, and I've heard it, sporadically since then, but this will be, listen to it all in one piece will be new. And then the other poll is for Jethro Tull albums that I haven't heard at all. So, and I do love Jethro Tull, so it'll be really exciting to sort of, dig in a little deeper to some of their stuff and hopefully, get excited over some new listens and some new material. And then lastly, I have a Joni Mitchell poll up for one of her albums. And right now it's a 3-way tie. So if somebody wants to go in and vote for that, either for the Roses, Court and Spark, or Hejira, I will listen to that full album. And I have heard those before, some more or less, some more than others. But yeah, excited to do that. And then, and I appreciate all you guys coming in, you guys have recommended so much music. I mean, and I really do. I write down, I keep a list of everything that everybody brings up. So everything from Billy Cobham, Blackbirds, Crack the Sky, Denise Williams, as I said, Gentle Giant, Gong, what else? Santana, 10 Years After, some singles, some full albums. And so I have listened to some of it. Some of it I want to save for, new listens, reactions, and stuff like that too. And then, I think Genesis, someone just recommended some Genesis, and that is one of the groups along with Gentle Giant that I really haven't, I feel like I've heard them sporadically here and there, but I haven't sat down and listened to an album. And because I felt like, my gut reaction at that time was I think I will appreciate the music. This is my belief at this point, pre-listening. I think that I am going to like some of the music, or I'll be interested by the music. And vocally, I think I will not have a sort of instant attraction to it, where it sort of draws me in. Usually, sometimes with music, it's just one thing that can kind of deter you, check the box, and kind of put a little wrinkle in it. So, I think, Peter Gabriel, I've, obviously heard some of his later solo stuff too. and it's not a voice that I'm attracted to. So we'll see. But I'm gonna I'm gonna go in there and try to keep an open mind, and just maybe some of their earlier stuff or some of their later stuff is something maybe more appealing. So I don't know. So I think down the road I will crack open that can of Genesis and go in, because I know there's a lot of people that they're diehard fans of all types of bands. You have Genesis, you have Gentle Giant. So I do want to dig deep. That's the whole part of this channel. I want to explore stuff. I want people to sort of hear stuff for the first time. And I've had some people come in and say, "Yeah, I didn't hear that gong before. I actually really like them. I didn't know I liked gongs." So that's the whole point of this channel. It's just to expand all our horizons with different stuff, and not just, obviously I've been focusing on progressive rock, but obviously there's all different genres, jazz and world music and folk and stuff. So I'm open to all that, and I've listened to a lot of it, but there's always stuff there. So always ready to do more. So yeah, this set of videos, there's going to be a whole slew here of, I decided to open the can up to the Canterbury scene in England, and I decided, there's a lot of groups here that I haven't heard. Some of them I have heard. So I'm just going to do a whole theme on the Canterbury scene, and I'm not qualifying it with too much, other than, if the bands are around a time and they sort of have this feel, this flair for, whatever style the Canterbury scene is, or members, jump from band to band. So I'm just going to do it. And I think there's like about 21 bands that I'm going to do just a single off of, and mostly off their debut album. I'm going to do everything off the debut album, pick a tune off that, and that may lead to other things, obviously. So, but this is going to be just a needle drop. 21 bands from 1963 to 1975, and this is going to be a whole bunch of videos just on this stuff. And maybe it'll lead to some further album listens. Anybody wants to jump into some different scenes, anything, I'm always open to it. So I appreciate everybody communicating. It's great to hear, and I try to give a response for everybody out there, and as much as I can. So again, that's about it for the intro. Other words, my name's Scott. I've played guitar for 30 plus years. Just call myself a student of music across as many genres as I've been curious about. Also done some lutherie, built a few instruments. This one here was a part of my second electric, but I like acoustics, electrics, whatever. Mandolins, mandolas, banjos, anything with strings is interesting. So curiosity is the key. So yeah, I'm here to uncover and rediscover musical insights, explorations, and inspiration and perspiration. Yeah, support the channel. That's dig deeper. So yeah, just go about and do your whatever you feel is necessary. Reach out to me. I do have a Patreon, but it's kind of I've just been throwing up like King Crimson there for now because I can't get it on the channel. But maybe Patreon will become something in the future. Right now, it's just you can go there free and just sign up and listen to some of the King Crimson that I can't get up. And that's where I'll put stuff right now as a sort of depot for stuff that gets not allowed on YouTube or so. But yeah, in the future, maybe become something else. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into it. So I'm just going to do a quick little, I looked up some things for the Canterbury. So this was Daevid Wayne I think it's on Progressive site, where they just sort of, there's a lot of commentary on albums and groups and stuff like that, and people comment in. And one person, I just took this one down, it seemed one interesting perspective on what the Canterbury scene was. And they said, it seems to me that the very essence of Canterbury is the tension between complicated harmonies, extended improvisations, and the sincere desire to write catchy pop songs. In the very best Canterbury music, the musically silly and the musically serious are juxtaposed in an amusing and endearing way. So, that probably sums up some of it. I think it definitely went outside of the bounds with some groups that are a little bit more, went into more progressive and more less silly, perhaps. But I think in the beginning, it was meant to sort of be this mixture of pop, silliness, jazz, spoken 50s, spoken beat generation mixed with jazz. So obviously over, the 12 years that I'm going to do it, it's evolved in quite interesting ways. So, but yeah, anyway, long story short, yeah. So let's jump into, I'm going to go chronologically because that's the only thing that kind of makes sense to me. So chronologically, what do we got? The first group, the beginning, and I'll go into some of the history or each song after the music, and I'll pause a little bit. I might pause once at least in between the music at some point. So the first one is the Daevid Allen Trio, and this is sort of the proto Canterbury scene players, with Daevid Allen on guitar, vocals, and poetry, Hugh Hopper on bass guitar, Mike Ratledge on piano, and Robert Wyatt on drums. And yeah, I'll go into a little bit of tiny bit of sort of the history with that group. But yeah, let's go into the first one. Let's see what. And as far as the music itself that I chose, I kind of just did a needle drop, found something that sort of clicked on my head as being, let's do this one, basically just on instinct. And that's how we do it. So, Daevid Allen Trio, live, 1963. And yeah, and even the ones in the needle drop, I think I did a lot of research over the past couple months on these, just trying to get, all the players, some interesting information, got all the, liner notes or whatever I could find, interviews. And then, so I don't know. I picked 2 songs off of this as possibles, so I don't know which one. I'm just going to pick either this one called Love is a Careless Sea or Dear Old Benny Green is a Turning in His Grave. So I don't know. If they're short enough, maybe I'll do both just to for a beginning. So anyway, let's do Daevid Allen Trio. Actually, there's 4 players, so I don't know. I think one of them may have been an extra on there. But anyway, Daevid Allen Trio, and we're going to do Love is a Careless Sea. Here we go.
Love is a careless sea which overflows. Love is a sallow hangman whose mechanism has never been oiled. Love is the winged vegetable in a flock of geese. Love is the cracked angel in the toppling tower of intellect. Love is a bleeding lamp in daylight. Love is the spotless jacket upon dancing wax dummies. Love is the jerking flower in a swamp of mouths. Love is the nightmare horse that flogs its rider. Love is the broken joke in a garden full of rooming rules. Love is the skill of extracting smoke from numbered footprints. Love is the healthy body of sickness. Love is the bladed tongue in a fumble of edges. Love is a corpse in a blizzard of circling crows. Love is the cackling throat in a hospital of treadless suffering. Love is the heart pumped to ashes. Love is the jostled underflesh of dream. Love is the frozen image in identity's whirling spools. Love is the painted kneading on the canvas countenance. Love is the bellowing organ in a body filled with perfect flesh. Love is the song that deafens the springs of glittering laughter. Love is the golden whiplash of Western man. Love is the feeble sun, the racked quick, the hinged hope, the bangled quin, the illness of lines, the tearing of feculent skin, the final dim banner of belonging. Love is my jungle of crashing lives. Love is my unlovely dying. My head is a nightclub, you see, and inside the nightclub there are little red lights on every table. There are people at each table. Glasses tinkle. There is also background music, and although they all converse in gentle voices, I cannot hear what they say. But when the club is closed and everyone has gone, the sole remaining waiter slyly dons his early morning madness and begins to scream. Effortlessly, the great dictator works me, and I write.
I was waiting to see how much applause there. They did get a smattering of applause. I wonder how much friends and family were there who made up the audience on that particular night. Yeah, this is one of those, for me, I feel like, not you have to be there, but I feel like, the enhancement of seeing things live obviously can bridge a lot of the gaps as far as being able to to relate to what's going on, sort of feel what's going on in the moment. Kind of listening to it secondhand, devoid of the human that you see and the interaction of the people playing. There's so much more to take in, watching it. You can see the drummer reacting to the bass and how the David Allen is vocalizing and doing melody in between. So hearing it in this setting, you kind of you lose some of the 3D. It's kind of like seeing something in 2D. But yeah, and then the style, obviously, I feel like for people who are not familiar with this sort of we call it alternative music, or it was probably pretty popular among a group of people in the 50s, the Beat Generation. But this is 1963, so I'm sure there's certain crowds that are still, this is still something that was around in different cities and stuff like that, and whether coffee houses or different get-togethers and stuff. So I am somewhat, I have heard style before, obviously with jazz, there's even scat and there's other things, as far as poetry within jazz. So I've heard some Kerouac stuff, spoken poetry over jazz, at least bass and drums, sometimes saxophone, stuff like that. So yeah, it's something you sort of, I feel like seeing it live is going to be a lot more fulfilling, or potentially more fulfilling. But this, the most interesting about this to me is just seeing, because I'm familiar with gong, so I'm familiar with David Allen to some degree. I've heard his first album, Magic Brother, and I like it. So hearing this is probably 6 years prior, and some very early. I mean, it's just interesting to see a band just really in the beginnings of, playing certain. Obviously they're trying to like emulate a little bit of Thelonious Monk on this one, or other jazz of the period. So they're trying to just, at one sense, they're trying to give a basic fundamental knowledge of how jazz is played, in the swing with drums, bass. Obviously with guitar it's a little bit more off the track a little bit, more avant-garde, let's say. But even in that sense, David Allen's ability, I don't know what his ability on guitar was, but it sounds like almost like he's making, chicken sounds, making squawking sounds. And then Robert Wyatt on the drum, and I think Hugh Hopper on bass, are doing, at least the bare minimum of, what you would have as a trio, backing on playing some music. Whether it's, you think of music like in the burlesque, they would just get drummers and bass players just to sort of fill in this sort of background noise for while there was dancers, there's other stuff. So in that sense, I mean, but the sound on this obviously is not super great. So, but yeah, it's a really interesting introduction into some of the players, that would, join numerous groups in the coming years. So you kind of see this really early iteration at people at their most basic, basically, their basic fundamental and musicality. And I'm sure in their minds, they knew they had a long way to go, and they were trying to, their best to sort of fulfill this, what they had in their imaginations to be able to do. So they had all that. I feel like they just had this passion to do stuff. But musically, it's interesting. So, and obviously we just played a couple of their tracks. I feel like these are probably, I think I listened to some of the other tracks on this, and these two were the most sort of initially just, I could take something from it. It's listenable, I would say. The rest of them, are a little bit less, I would say. Or for maybe somebody that has this style, maybe this falls right in your pocket, of interesting, and you get something out of it. For me, it's mostly just hearing very like beginning oriented and amateur, trying to sort of fit into this big scheme of like this music that they just adore and get so much inspiration from, and they're trying to like give it back. But yeah, so interesting place to start. 1963, and it is live too, so obviously it's not it's going to have those hallmarks of they're playing in a very small little club somewhere, a little coffee house or a pub. Anyway, but let's get into the so as I said, David Allen Trio, David Allen guitar, vocals, poetry, Hugh Hopper on bass, Robert Wyatt on drums, and Mike Ratledge. We did hear Mike Ratledge on piano. So yeah, there's 4 people on here, so maybe some of those have a trio, just 3. Anyway, Hugh Hopper, Robert Wyatt, as this was said by I believe David Allen. Hugh Hopper, Robert Wyatt was his introduction to everything bizarre in music before 1962 and 1963. Robert Wyatt's brother had a tasty collection of jazz records: Ornette Coleman, Cecil Taylor, Mingus, and so on. And these were swelled by the arrival of a mad Australian jazzer poet to stay at Robert's house, which was David. While working on a farm, Brian and I used to go down to Robert's between Canterbury and Dover to have a blow. David had already moved to London by this time. He must have saw something in this Robert, and I played that made him suggest we come up to London and form a band with him. Saw something in us that when we played together that suggested we come up to London and form a band with him. By February 1963, Robert and Hugh took over David's old one-room flat in Belsize Park, and we shared the flat with Kevin Ayers and Ted Bing. It must be said, while we got a first steady gig at the Establishment Club for 20 quid a week each and a free meal, we were pretty challenging musically and also likely sounded pretty damned awful. While Robert had pretty good jazz chops, I knew very little about bass in this context, and David's freaky writing and guitar playing. After 2 more appearances, Hugh moved back to Canterbury to earn cash in a vegetable warehouse, and David moved to Paris and met Gilly, and Robert stayed in London. After a few visits and promises to reunite David, in 1964, Robert, Brian Hopper, Kevin Hopper, who's Kevin? Robert, Brian Hopper, Kevin Hopper, I believe, and Richard Sinclair, and I started the Wild Flowers. So that leads us into the next iteration of the group of individuals: David Allen, Hugh Hopper, Robert Wyatt, his brother, Hugh Hopper and Brian Hopper, Kevin Sinclair, and Richard Sinclair. I think there are 2 sets of brothers, and I think that'll become apparent as I move on. But yeah, I'm coming to this after a couple weeks of doing a lot of research and reading and stuff, and the names, as you know, with the Canterbury scene, the family tree is pretty crazy. So yeah, we're going to jump into the next year, 1964. As I said, the Wild Flowers is one step closer to what we start to think of as the original Canterbury band, which was the Wild Flowers. They're generally associated with that. So, despite not releasing any material during their brief 3-year tenure, the band are generally considered to be the originators of the Canterbury scene. After their breakup in 1969, the group's members went on to form numerous key bands within the scene, including Soft Machine, Caravan, and Camel. So, that's where we're up to now. So these are the very beginnings of the Canterbury scene. So we had Robert Wyatt on drummer, Kevin Ayers on lead vocal, Brian Hopper on lead guitar, sax and vocal, Hugh Hopper on bass, Richard Sinclair on rhythm guitar and vocal, and Richard Coughlin on drums. So this is a mixture of Wildflowers with different members. This wasn't all the same people at all the same time. But it's, through the, as I said, the 3 years from 64. 64 is when they sort of just kind of got together, but there is more. Let me turn this down a tad. So anyway, we're going to get on with it and have a great day, and we're going to get on with the next Canterbury scene, so check it out in a few days. Take care. Bye-bye.